Our next guest wrote a memoir that tells the story of how he began his life in war-torn Iraq and traveled to a position of fighting for shareholders in Canada with a lot of challenges and education along the way, and a few song lyrics as well. Nawar Alsaadi is author of The Bull of Heaven, and he joins us now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me, Francis.
Great to have you here in the studio. Your book starts with, "My first memories are of war." What are those memories and how did they shape who you became?
The first memory I remember is being in a living room with my mom, and there was an air raid. That was 1980, the first days of the Iraq-Iran war. And we had multiple air attacks at that time on Baghdad. And the war lasted for 8 years. So the way it shaped me is that it became an integral part of my life. I would go to school, play with my friends, and then run away in a shelter away from missiles and airstrikes.
Now, you were able, with your family, to leave the country. It took you to France. How did that happen? How were you able to leave war-torn Iraq and make it to France?
Actually, it was a coincidence. After many years of war, in July 1990, my father decided to take us on a tour to Europe, and that was the 2nd of July 1990. And while we were in Europe, Iraq invaded Kuwait, and my parents wanted to escape from another war, and they were planning to wait for the war to finish, and then we'd go back. But unfortunately, the situation in Iraq kept getting worse and worse and worse until where we are today. The country doesn't even exist anymore.
No, it seems to be pulled apart at the seams. The book is kind of interesting in terms of the chapters. I mentioned musical lyrics in the introduction. All of the chapters have titles from songs. I understand your editor wasn't all that pleased with that, but you wanted to stick with those titles. Why?
Well, I love arts and music. My mom is an artist. My sister is an artist as well. And music, I'm not a musician. I would love to play music. I don't know how to play music. But I've listened to music, and it's been with me throughout the good and the bad of my life. And I thought it just proper to color the book as well with the music titles.
Well, talking about investing, of course, you're on BNN here. One of the interesting chapters was what the wins and losses, I guess, going into the tech bubble of 2000. That chapter is called Magic Carpet Ride. It really was a ride. Before we get to some specifics, do you think one of the discussions was how in 2000 both the buyer and the bought were both going up in share price? Yes. It was like a win-win. Yeah. We're seeing that a little bit today. We're talking about Tim Hortons. Both share prices have been going up. Most of these deals we see right now. Do you align kind of what was happening in 2000 with what's happening today?
To some extent, yes. I'm seeing a lot of red flags, a lot of euphoria in the market, a lot of easy money. Even though at that time interest rates were higher, today we're flooded with liquidity. So I think this is driving deals. And ultimately, that kind of party does not last. And everybody thinks they can exit before it all collapses. But I mean, I would caution that we're seeing some worrisome signs.
Over the years, you've been, I mean, you're an investor. You've done a lot of investing. Some of it might look like gambling. In particular, what you did with the operating capital for your father's hotel. That was a gamble.
It's funny you say that. An alternative title I had for the book was The Gambler. I would say the first 10 years of my investing were a bit of excessive risk-taking and gambling. But ultimately, what made me who I am today was investing. So I had to go through that journey to learn how to play this game right. So
lose as well as win, and then lose some more?
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing certain when it comes to investing, so you have to be prepared to lose money to make money. But of course, if you take excessive risks, ultimately, even if you make money, it will not last. And my goal today, and was when I started investing properly, is to keep what I've earned rather than risk it again and potentially lose all of it again. One of the,
maybe you're best known in Canada for your initiatives with respect to equal energy. I think you cited some issues you had with compensation levels of the management team. It was a fight. The management team, in fact, I think filed suit against you for breaking securities laws. in terms of your ownership and how you disclosed your ownership. Tell us a little bit about that battle and why you wanted to be involved in that and the back and forth between you and Equal Energy.
Equal Energy was a company in my portfolio. It was a company that was chronically mismanaged for a long period of time. In my opinion, this was due to poor leadership and a complacent board. So I took all my capital and I bought 5% of the company, and I decided to engage them to rectify the situation. When I tried to engage with them, they refused to meet with me. They refused to engage in any meaningful dialogue, and that forced me to take a more of a public stance, where I used the digital media, Facebook, Twitter, blogs, and so on to pressure them to do the right thing. The management was displeased with my pressure, and they filed a wide-ranging lawsuit, which was in the end was based on a technicality, and they alleged a certain maldoing, but actually in the end they settled because I don't think they did not have a case. But this is the problem we have today. Companies are much larger than shareholders, and they employ the resources of the company against their shareholders. And I think we cannot have a healthy financial system if the owner is out of the equation. The financial system we have today is a system where fund managers manage other people's money and executives manage other people's assets, and the owner is nowhere to be found. And I want the owner to be back and to be heard.
And are you continuing to do that, to agitate for shareholders?
Most certainly. I've recently joined the board of the Canadian Association of Individual Investors. It's a new initiative. We're working to advance shareholder rights and to improve corporate governance.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with your book.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Nawar Alsaadi is the author of The Bull of Heaven.